Live streaming. Fantastic. It's funny because it shows it's live streaming, but yet on the Zoom screen, it's still got the blue line going ahead.
I got the message that it's live streaming.
Yeah.
Yes, I have the message again. Live streaming on YouTube.
Excellent. Okay. Right then. And open up that chat window. Okay, we'll get started. Oh, remember to record. There we go. Alrighty.
Oh, we have Romania here.
Oh yeah, we've got Bucharest, Romania, Northeast Scotland. Yay. We've got some Brits in the house. You're connecting with your aquafarian body currently. Fair enough.
That sounds mermaidy or dolphiny.
Oh, beautiful. Oh, a lot of Europeans. Switzerland again. Wonderful. Right. Okay. Fantastic. Well, let's make a start then. I'm really excited for this conversation. New Mexico, USA. Excellent stuff. Okay. So, hello and welcome to season 11 of the Mundane to Magical online summit series. My name is Louise Matson, and as always, I am truly blessed to be your host. We are halfway through this season, and today I'm really excited to welcome a brand new speaker, the wonderful Leslie Shankman. I've been waiting for this call all week, and I'm thrilled to be able to introduce Leslie to you all and to introduce the Stellar Nation's wisdom to you as well. Leslie found herself living a different expression of her life in each decade. In her 20s, she was full on in business world, whilst taking esoteric courses on the side, like many of us. And in her 30s, she dropped out, as it were, or perhaps in, to live, study, and work at a yoga institute. Later that decade, she became a mother and left the Yoga Institute and was self-employed in various ways. But an inner voice always told her that she would find her true work after the age of 50. So she was excited to approach 50 and then devastated to discover that she had an aggressive form of cancer that was usually managed but not banished. A complete healing of the cancer came from the deeper healing of learning to trust her inner voice and the intelligence that runs through life. And by 2012, after a decade of helping seniors through dying, she was burning with the question, how can I be a boundaryless self? Meaning, how could one stay in the body but live within a more transcendent sense of life? Now, this persistent question drew the Stellar Nations, a cosmology out of Hungary, to her in 2013, which answered her yearning by showing her how to become grounded in boundlessness. Leslie has a passion to share this cosmology, and since 2013 has edited numerous Stellar Nations publications, written blogs and taught classes, and has made various videos, including 2 which she's shared generously with us all on the free gifts page. She also reads the Antares Code, and she will explain a little bit more about what that is. But it's an interpretation of a person's stellar matrix, which offers a way to understand the soul's trajectory and the patterns at the root of one's challenges and strengths. Now, the topic for conversation today is the Stellar Nations, the year of the dragons and the great felines. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm super excited for our conversation today. As many of you know, I'm very, very much associated with dragon energy. And if any of you have managed to watch the 2 videos that Leslie has provided as a free gifts, you will already have a flavour and some awareness of these 2 cosmic beings and the stories of their wounds. Today, Leslie will share a brief introduction to the Stellar Nations cosmology, but we'll mainly focus on the dragon and great feline stories to show us all how we can work within these aspects of ourselves during this year and heal those wounds within us. As always, please feel free to ask any questions as we go along. I will weave them into the conversation as best I can, but let's dive straight into the Stellar Nations. It is with great honour and pleasure that I welcome you to the show, Leslie.
Thank you. I'm so pleased to be here. Thank you for asking me.
No, I'm really excited about this call. Oh, we've got a Finnish lioness. Fantastic.
Ooh,
Somebody's
lioness.
seen the video.
Okay.
So I've given a bit of an introduction, from your biography there about your kind of story, but is there anything else that you want to share around your connection with the Stellar Nations and before we kind of dive into the story of the dragons, the introduction of the cosmology itself?
Okay. I think I constantly grow in it, and we all will as we engage in it, because we are seeing the stars here as really sentient beings. The stars are where our souls abide. And so we're on different stars by resonance with what it is that we want to learn or we're learning together. So I've really come to think of the stars as the cells in our larger light bodies, and the information and light that they give off, you could almost think of as the bones or the organs. And so there's this whole coherent structure of our light body, because we are really realizing now that we are multivariant and dimensional with many perspectives, which is even busting our sense of time. But how do we be coherent with that? Because it's such a large picture. And then we're living in the third dimension, and yet we're trying to integrate that. And what I love about the stellar nations is they're galactic myths, and there's 13 soul families. And essentially these soul families are, you could call it our galactic DNA. And we have all of those 13 in us. They're light seals that the creator in this creation cycle put out as matrices of energy. And they were apprehended by Dr. Beatrix Sezel and Aniko Gresco in 2005. And they're souls who have long been, they've always been involved with stellar consciousness. Dr. Beatrix was she was a founder of the Island of the Stars in Lemurian times. Lemuria was 133 islands, and one of them was specifically, each island had a kind of a different task. The Island of the Stars was specifically about apprehending the stellar rays and starting to weave them into the Earth consciousness. So I'm going to stop for a minute. Do you want to ask me anything? Because I could just keep going and pulling in random things to try to make the picture.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is, we're coming into this kind of deeper and wider understanding or inner standing of ourselves beyond the physical form and beyond even the energetic form that we are.
Right.
And kind of shifting into what Nora would say would be the crystalline grid aspect, the much wider perspective of who you are. But I think it's beautiful to have this modality as it brings in a narrative form, a story form around these different nations, these different stellar nations that come together to make us who we are. And like you say, holding all of them, because we've been everything and we are everything. But knowing that in this incarnation, we've come to, as it were, focus on certain wound patterns, or, to bring forth certain aspects or gifts, some people would say, into this physical experience. So I think it's just another example of a beautiful evolution of a well-known modality like astrology, because it is based, very much from a visual perspective, like the natal chart that you would be known and seen in many times. But yeah, tell us more about the different stellar nations. And I know we can't go into all of them because I mean that would be a whole show in itself, and we want to focus on the dragons and the great felines. But yeah, just in that, just sharing a bit more about what are the different 13 and maybe some key aspects of each of them to give people a flavor.
Okay, well, let's back up and say that when with Bayanonical have always had this stellar consciousness. And actually, they were both born in 1968, I think. And at the age of 20, they didn't know each other yet, but they had each had car accidents. And Beatrix actually died. So she left her body. Felt said it was really wonderful, but she was shown packages of light and given the opportunity to come back and actualize those packages of light. And she said, just like a rambunctious 20-year-old teenager type of energy, it's like, yes. And she dived back to her body. But she, for her, the gates never closed after that. And then and Aniko also had an accident that helped her, I think, with various spiritual things. They're both deep healers. In fact, Dr. Beatrix was in medical school at the time, which was kind of excruciating to just open up so much and then like go see a person and supposed to use a stethoscope and she's like seeing, the roots of things. So she became a homeopath as well as an MD, but of course her real passion is to go to the roots. So they've always been very connected with Pleiadian and other energies. And then in 2005, significantly, really, because that's when we were starting to blossom into the seed of the galactic underworld in the Mayan timeline was planted in 99, but the half point came in 2005. It's like the plant came above the ground, showed its flower. Our collective consciousness was sort of like ready for something. And I remember I was aware of this all at the time because I was following Barbara Hand-Clow and Dr. Koloman, who does the Carl Koloman, and he was begging people to have ceremonies in 2005 to acknowledge the seed. So I would watch, it's when Time magazine started having a cover, we're one, we are one, because we started seeing, whether we knew it or not yet, that we were part of something bigger than just the earth. So when 2005 happened, this seventh dimension, well, this larger delegation, probably more the galactic, I don't know what I'd call it or what they call it, the celestials, the Grand Master of each of the 13 stellar nations came into them, and it was a very different energy. It took them a while to attenuate it, and they got a lot of help with their pineal gland, which they actually say, if you get deeply into the stellar nations, the celestial promised whoever does this will get that kind of apprehension help. But now 2005, we're almost 20 years later, and we've come so much more into the light of the photon belt. But this was like the beginning of grounding coherency for what was going to come in, what was starting. And they were taken in their consciousness to Antares, which is a seventh dimensional star. So that's frequency. It's just relational sound. And what happened is, because we don't comprehend that, it had to be put into mythic form. So it's story form that are relational dynamics. But it's interesting because it's really an underlying frequency. It does wake something up in us. And each particular nation is really an aspect of ourself. It's a mission we have, it's a challenge we have, it's a set of gifts we have. But then in the course of reflecting the developmental pattern really that we're all on, there's that gift, but there's some kind of temptation or lapse or moving away from our original divine fate. And then there's these whole sets of how do we come back to that? What lessons do we have to learn? And then eventually, how do we come back fully into the light? So it's very much a path of redemption, really. And then it's a path of learning to trust the factors and to trust the whole galaxy. And when you start, well, I shouldn't say the galaxy, but the creation cycle, and the creator. So as far as the 13 stellar nations, a lot of these are just so embedded in us anyway. We've got angels, right? And angels really are the creative force itself is just this divine mind that has ideas. It's an inert stillness in a way, although it's not, because its ideas go out like huge spiritual rays. But those rays from the divine mind are literally born with an angel like on the particular, like the divine mind has an idea of, oh, I want this principle in their universe, or I want guardians for these beings. Or so the angels aren't hierarchic, but it seems that way because there's all these different assignments. But I've come to really understand, it's the whole Davic force. It's that, like a Deva is something which will hold the form, like the energy form for something to manifest. So an angel is very much like that. It's kind of like the arms and legs, the guide for this divine idea. And we've got unicorns, which is our whole creative self. It's the side that listens to the dreams of beings and sentient beings. And it works on all kinds of levels because, you know, you'll look down. I mean, this is even our higher self doing this for ourselves. Oh, look at that dream. That's worthy of creation. And then the elements start manifesting around, especially if you have a strong intention, because you create the morphogenic field for that. And then the unicorns had their laps because they watched, look at, I put all those things together for a dream to materialize, and they don't use it because you know how we lose our grip on our ideas. So the unicorns like kind of got off the back of the unicorn. And I mean, the lapse there was, let us be dreamers. We'll go down there, and we're down there, meaning there's all these layers of expression of energy. And we know in the third dimension, it gets more concentrated, it's thicker. And for a lot of reasons, we forget. Uh, so that's the nature of the lapse. Most of the lapses are very sweet and sort of innocent in a way, like just like, let me explore my sovereignty. Let's see. The lapse of the dragons is dragons, angels, arthropods, and male serpents is a little more uh, I don't know, greedy, I would say. And that's the influences we're dealing with now. So just to go quickly through, we've got the great feline, the dragons, also the winged lion. Those are the leaders, the true use of power. And that is the ability to have the divine frequency run through you. And you become a leader by the fact that your frequency is one that invites lower frequencies to entrain up to it. So it's not a leader like a power over thing. It's just the ability to run the force of the divine. And then we've got the male and female serpent who are forever trying to understand their true complementarity, which is actually beautiful when you start to understand it. They're actually Siamese twins, but they go in different directions. And they're, on our earth plane, we're still trying to bring it together.
Yeah.
And we've got the bears, which are the carriers of Christ consciousness, is just really, yes, exhibited through Jesus, has been really maligned by Christianity, which is really the intricacies of those energy dynamics across the dimensions, the third on up, are really shown in the Stellar Nations galactic myths between the male and female serpents and the bears. And then we've got the cosmic humans. I mean, we're all on a body level. We actually carry these codes on a spirit level, a soul level, and a body level. And there's different possibilities. And although we have them all in us, it's like our galactic lineage may be, just like someone's Irish or someone's African. They have a lineage of doing some more than others. So on a body level, though, we know we're a cosmic human because we're here. We're a cosmic human by 51%, but we probably carry another body code, meaning that whole nation and those stars are more alive to us. Because when we're born, basically, what we do is so we're this ongoing consciousness, right? And we're living in these stars, and they're wonderful literally worlds of exploration. So, in our fantasy movies and all that, we outpicture some of this stuff, but it's like, oh, if you start really coming into the stellar nations, it's like it reminds me of what Jesus said, in my Father's house, there are many mansions, because it's like, whoa, that's like a real place. Okay. And your piece of your soul is living there. So when you decide to come into an incarnated body, to work with your consciousness on this level as well, it's like by wherever you are, as far as what your consciousness wants to work with on all these codes and stars you are, it's like you kind of start gathering. It's all resonance because it's all frequency and kind of the magnetism. So you're gathering what your purpose is, and you're coming through an ethereal birth canal. And it's like your stellar mantle is starting to coalesce around you. And literally, when we're born, when we come into our incarnated body, we still have that stellar cloak around us, that stellar mantle. It's our remembering field. And the exciting time about now is really, this is really the first time, I don't know if maybe, well, not, Lemuria was different, but this is this is the time where we can go into that remembering field and then blossom out into being these things. And we are, I mean, to being all of it or transversing it. I mean, I think the idea of the fifth dimension more is really that we would be in form, but very fluid, like having the ability to let all the aspects of creation go through us. But like, I feel like the Stellar Nations helps us know how to be coherent with all this and really helps us be in training because especially through this ascension portal, which is really actually an embodying of all this in our body. So it's not like an up and out thing, but we're not going to recognize these aspects of ourselves unless we've kind of know them. I mean, you know how it is when the ship wasn't seen by the indigenous tribes because they just weren't trained to see it, but the shaman could. Well, as we come up through, if we've gotten these kind of experiences, and I like the Stellar Nations because it literally gives so much form through these parts of ourselves and through the myths, we're going to know to reach for the hands that are reaching down for us as we are moving through this like dimensional kind of reperceptioning. But yeah,
One of the things that I've really found when I had my chart done, and the chart is the Antares codes, and it does look like a natal chart, but it's all based on the fixed stars and their position at your time of birth. And like you say, the cosmology of the stellar nations is they actually relate to the different star systems and individual stars. But what I found was I could track through the beauty of the myth behind it. It's like the human aspect of us kind of needs that to
yeah,
make sense
yeah.
of the kind of ground to hook in this really high
Right, right,
vibrational
right.
transmission that's coming through. But it enabled me to go, okay, that was that point in my life. That was that which happened. That was that relationship. I was playing out and playing through these different woundings and then kind of moving through, transitioning through into the kind of the higher understanding and higher resonance with those aspects of myself. And like you say, it is a descension process rather than an ascension because we're not going up and out. We're drawing all of that stuff into this human form, but also this physical experience as well. And so it answered a lot of questions that I had about myself and why my life had played out the way it had and why I react and respond in certain ways, or why I've just had innate beliefs about myself. And one of those was the dragon story.
Mhm.
But it's yeah, I just find that it meets us on all of our multidimensional levels because within this incarnated form we do have a varying bandwidth of dimensional aspects, but it meets our lowest aspect with the story, and the transmission meets all the other aspects so that we can kind of encode it at all those different levels that we exist within. And I think for me that's the beauty of the stellar nations because it brings it into something tangible in a way.
Yes, and that's why I always say, oh my goodness, there's so much coherency. And I feel like it answers my question, how do I be grounded in boundlessness? It very much is a training, and what we're trying to do now is integrate opposites, shadow and light, come to center and sort of emerge from that with the wisdom of both sides, but not wanting to play the game anymore of just polarizing back and forth. And actually, that's the beauty of the Dragon Nation. Let me just quickly say there's also arthropods, birds, dolphins, whales. So I think I kind of got most of the nations out there. But
Yes.
see, the dragons, their lapse was that part, it's a part of ourselves, right? And it's compelling to think about because the dragons they have to master 8 virtues, and they're very much a body code. And the first 4 virtues are the power of really knowing the elements because there's um well, it's a warrior nation. Warrior is a strength and a determination to stand up for something. And the dragons are charged with their mission is you're supposed to protect the winged lion, which is basically you protect divine order. So divine order can be in the galaxy. So they're given great gifts for this, the mastery over the four elements, and that's physically and metaphysically. Of course, that takes a lot of work. It's like the Eastern martial arts. It's a very focused pathway of development, and it's very much more young. It's sort of like, well, we have to follow this. There is a commander in the Dragon Con, and the commander was appropriate there because the whole idea was, well, even in upholding divine law, you have the feeling of, well, there is a big force that we want to respect. So the commander sort of would ideally stand in for that. It's not a commander like power over do this, although that's what happened with Khan. So Khan is the lord of the fifth element, which is kind of ether, but it's the ability to balance everything. And you really, when you think about it, that's exactly what we have to learn now in this next Aquarian age, or even to be fifth dimensional perception, because creation is constantly happening. And if we want to hold it in form, we have to be like just fluid, even though we're in form. So there's this whole, when you watch the dragon video, it's really about when you come to the fifth element, I describe a little bit about how you have to hold this all in. And then you move on in initiations to learning how to use power well, but Khan failed the initiation. And your heart really does go out in the story aspect, because it's like, oh my God, what would it be like to have, what is it like to have all that power and in your body, right? And then what Khan happened when he went through that initiation was like, I think I'm reading the creator wrong. No, I mean, look at what I've been given. I have all this power, and I should be in charge of all these things. What this lion is sitting there like, he doesn't look like he's doing anything, because he's basically running a divine frequency, and he's like literally keeping the vibration of everything around him in order with the divine, right? But it's more subtle than Khan didn't get that. So he failed. And which is really interesting to think about in our whole evolutionary developmental cycle, because it's about we lost touch with what is divine order and how do we hold it and stand up for it. And that's what's happening now in this Aquarian age. It's the big question. And the feline and the dragon coming back are such an exemplification of it. And we need to heal the wounds so we can be mature about how we come into this Aquarian age where we're free sovereign beings, but we know how to respect the whole, so that our freedom works for the good of all and not against. And that's where the great felines come in also as warriors, but as a feminine yin persuasion, where their whole style comes from the inner apprehension. And because it's a feminine perspective, the perspective is kind of an innate awareness of the whole, like a mother has. And so they're also assigned to guard the winged lion. However, if the winged lion goes despotic, which can happen, they're like, for the people. They're like, we're going to protect the right to sovereignty and that's such a deep love for the creator. The creator made us because it wants to be able to express through every creation, and every creation has the right to experience and know the creator. So there's just such a high principle there. But what happened in our cosmic history early on, and it probably at the beginning of another Aquarian age, the great felines, well, the dragons had gotten, it all started with the war in the angels, and which created the polarization. And you go, oh, why did the angels wreck it? But I mean, it must have been it was the idea of the divine mind, right? Okay. So got to thank those angels maybe who went dark, because they said, okay, I'll play that part. I'll be the catalyst. So anytime you get some kind of any energy is going to create like a ripple throughout sentient beings, throughout consciousness.
Yeah.
So the angels introduced that first idea, like, well, maybe you don't have to do the organic matrix. Maybe I can do my own and it'll be great and it'll work. So, but then when Khan didn't pass his initiation and went power hungry, he had this strategy. He eyed the great felines and said, "Oh gosh, if we merged with the great felines, we could have the best of both." So he put his armies under his command. Go have an affair with them. Now, meanwhile, they felt the rest of energy of what do we do in this matrix? They didn't have their lapse wasn't mean. It was so naive. It was actually extremely democratic. It was sort of like, wait a minute, nobody should be in charge. It was a true Aquarian principle. It's
Mm.
just that they were immature in the sense that, like cats, they couldn't follow command. They started getting an idea. They didn't really unite around the idea. Plus, they were seeing it at a time where they couldn't see the whole, and they didn't realize the galaxy's not ready for this. We got this this rogue angel and this rogue dragon. So they started rebelling. They went to a star Beta Leonos and started feeling like, ooh, we're special. They kind of lost sight of even being part of the whole. Like, we're special. We think that we should have we should have this round table. Nobody should be in charge. It was a good idea, but that made them very vulnerable because the dragons approached them in a loving way. And that, I mean, there's a real natural attraction that, the dragon with this big energy. So there was a love affair on the star Sheraton, where there was a lot of true love for the felines, for some dragons, but a lot of it was just a usury. And in
Mm.
that pillow talk, all the strategies were understood, which allowed for a totally um, unscrupulous, immoral attack on the wing lion and the great felines guarding the wing lion. Now, it's interesting because the wing lion was high enough running divine to know that it was coming, but it also knew that if I mean, the attack was so immoral because of the way the information was gotten, but also because angels could put up an invisibility shield. I mean, you just didn't know that this nuclear destruction was literally about to be there in 1 minute,
Mm.
which is not the rules of warfare, if there are rules. But anyway, what happened is the the great felines were mostly largely killed. And those who were left, a few left in the galaxy, those who could get away went to the Andromeda, got out through the Andromeda galaxy. Last portal, it was really mean because the dragons kept cutting off the escape routes just to try to contain them. Now, there were hybrid children of that, and that was Khan's dream. Go get those children. Now, some of them managed to sneak off. And oh God, talk about if this isn't your heritage, it's really lonely. I mean, you don't belong to either place. Your mother's terrified of you. It has this cast of all this stuff on it. And by and large, it didn't turn out to be like fine hybrids. It was either too much of one or the other. It kind of could be like a clumsy thing. And Khan told the dragon fathers, you get them, round them up. And those children who were they were put through Khan's training, and if they weren't top notch, they were killed. Otherwise, they were just turned into basically killing machines. So it's just a horrible heritage. Now you've got all these wounded, including some hybrids that made it out, wounded females to the Andromeda galaxy, which is innately a yin galaxy. So you would think, oh, they're home because they serve the goddess. But that you can get home. The love of the goddess was there, but they had so much trauma and injury that they had to work that out. And that's what I did the video on that. So the backstory that I've just kind of gone into is a little more elaborated on in the videos and in knowing the galactic myths. But you can see how it plays out in dramatic ways, like inner things of ours. But we've gone through these kinds of scenarios. We have betrayals sometimes by family members and all that in our life, but they're actually sometimes they're waking up this deeper dynamic, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, shall
I
we
mean,
keep going? or do you want to you want to
Well,
ask
I
me a
mean, I can see this on an individual level, and then I can see it playing out, and we can all see it playing out in the collective space as well. I mean, a lot of people are aware that it's kind of like we've lived through several millennia of like very masculine dominant energy, but then, we're feeling the feminine coming back, and it's like, well, of course, they had to go and process everything that happened before that energy could start coming back in. And also we, as we hold all of these different frequencies and aspects, can see that, the great feline energy coming back in terms of, standing up for we the people in response to, a lot of top down kind of
yeah,
governing that has been taking place over the last year. I mean, it's always kind of been there in the background, and I personally know that because of my personal history and the role that my father played in the forces. But it's really in your face now, but it's really in your face because for me, it's like a boil that needs to pop. And
mhm,
then it's time for the great feline energy to kind of come in for us all. And again, for us all to heal the dragon, to kind of stand up for what is right, within ourselves, and stand in our own power and stand in our own sovereignty, and to kind of have the marrying of the two. So in a way, it's, yes, there was relationships between the two that were immoral and things and not done from the point of view of the greatest and highest good, but it's kind of like coming back into this partnership with the different aspects and essences working together in unity to kind of move forward now for the greatest
right.
good.
And on the galactic cosmic level, there's been all this healing and actually the creation of new patterns.
Mm.
And that's so we can know that it's basically the whole the healing has happened on that level, but it's time to integrate it in on our level and
Yeah.
to make it real. And yeah, and I should say though about the stars, we think, oh, they're powerful. We've been so maligned about we're bad and down here and small, and there's a greater power and we don't match it. When I first read the Stellar Nations, honestly, 2013, I read it. I was like so mad because I saw all these things and I'm like, I've been fooled all the time. I'm this little small nothing on Earth and all this great, like it's happening everywhere. Like, you know what I mean? All these high beings. But what it's about is, yeah, like that's what's true about us. And with all these stellar rays that where our souls are, some of them are really low octave. Some of them are Christed. And actually, when we have the charge as humans on Earth, because Earth in this whole play out is the planet of redemption, where we were meant to balance and harmonize these 13 aspects of ourselves, and also come into balance with the masculine and feminine. So, like our planet, for a lot of cosmic reasons, got the whole Megillah. And if we're here, our soul wanted to do that. And it's really fascinating. I have such deep respect when I read Antari's codes to look, everybody has such a different galactic face, but to look at what we came in with and what we said, oh my goodness, like pulling in different things that we're going to deal with on the third dimension. It's not like our lives I have to be travesties because of that. But I mean, I think there's a certain element, especially if we're aware of this now, of wanting to be a light worker. We definitely brought in some of these karmic patterns to carry them to a higher octave.
Absolutely. It was funny because I had a client session earlier today, and the lady was saying, "I'm sick and tired of doing all this work. It's never ending." And it was kind of like, well, there are so many people who inhabit this planet, this planetary consciousness, who are not connected to this wider awareness of who they are, that are very much kind of locked into that concept of themselves as just the small human, that it takes those of us who have come in to either awaken or who've come in a stage of awakening, to kind of do the work. And we are doing it for ourselves and we only have responsibility for ourselves, but actually we have come to do it for everybody. to, because once we do this work to balance these different aspects within ourselves and come into unification as a whole, yes, okay, they're 13 stellar nations, but they're all part of the all that is. And so it's just a whole aspect of consciousness. We do that for everyone. We raise the frequency of the lowest vibrational element of the planetary consciousness, and therefore assist in the awakening and the kind of reconnection of everybody who is currently in that state of unconsciousness. One of the biggest things that I love about the stellar nations is every single aspect has a fallen aspect. And one of
Mm-hmm.
the biggest blocks that I have seen in my clients to and in myself to kind of fully stepping into sovereignty and fully stepping into power is that inner feeling, that fear of it. Because if I take on my full power, I might do something bad. Well, we've all done something bad,
Right,
to
right.
varying degrees in previous experiences of incarnation through the multidimensionality as well. But, doesn't mean to say that we have to keep repeating that. We did that in that experience. We played that part, we played that role for the wider reason, like you say, the divine mind had an idea. And we all said, oh, I'll play that role, I'll play that role. And we played our parts perfectly. But coming into your power is coming into harmony with that idea that yes, I mean, I hold my hand up, I was a destroyer of worlds. But it doesn't,
I know.
I'm not here to be that in this lifetime. And so in taking my power on fully in this lifetime with the awareness of what is possible, then I get to choose the higher path. I get to choose to come into the higher aspect of those gifts, those strengths, those different
And that's
vibrations.
the point, right? Of maturing into the choice and realizing, because how can we become co-creators for all this, which is our next creation cycle? I mean, we're literally at the end of three huge cycles, the precession of the equinox or going around Alcyone and another big one. And if you think of them as spiral arms, where this one we've been on is the polarization, doing everything on both sides to learn. But we're about to be swept up, like literally in a galactic rearrangement, which is about self-mastery and co-creation. So it's almost like the divine is creating the divine ideas to create like an aspect of itself that can maybe even feel a little more, because there's these beings who are going to be more closely associated with letting the flow of it come through, if we live on that level. So yeah, and let me say, on a spirit level, when we first individuated, we had the choice to be Holy Spirit. None of us did that because the Holy Spirit is just that's the 13th stellar nation. It's the big quantum field everything's contained in. I forgot to say the Pegasus too. The Pegasus,
Oh,
oh.
yeah.
um, anyway, that we could be that. We're not Holy Spirit, angel or cosmic human. And it's actually good to really feel into what are you on a spirit level, because you're going to have a real different orientation based on what you are. But cosmic human, the creator actually made the two faces of itself in the form of a feminine and a masculine. And it's really meant to represent like the love dub of the heart, the constant back and forth, the conversation. It's the love vibration. And when we were created that way, by resonance, if we chose that by resonance versus the angel, uh, we either had a masculine or feminine resonance. So right away, there's a polarity even in that piece of creation, just like the angels had to set up. And we do every at least 7 years, we need to switch sexes so we can have it in our incarnation so we can understand. But the creator also said to the cosmic humans, look, your mission is to hold all these light matrices. They're forms and frames for different ways of experiencing creation. And you are supposed to experience fully. And I want you to go deeply into the shadow to discover the light. I mean, that is literally the charge that was given. So we really have to get over this feeling of shame and all that, because that's going to keep us from making the move because you cannot be resonant with like a fifth dimensional consciousness if you have a lot of shadows in you. And if you have all the shame and the guilt, a lot of it's put on by the outer structures who want to maintain power over the fallen parts. And why do they do that? Because they don't have the juice of the organic matrix. So they have to steal power because the organic matrix is continually renewing. But anyway, with the cosmic human, we should know we're doing exactly what we were supposed to. And it's not noble to be, oh, I'm so sorry, God, please, I'm going to do penance. Because the laws of the galaxy are pretty straightforward, actually. And one of the laws is constant river of mercy. There's four divine principles: love, divine law, mercy or grace, and divine will. Divine will is really the highest intention of the light that we hold for ourselves inside. We're pushing away divine will because we don't want to do that. Like something else is telling us what to do. Oh my God, it's our own highest intention of our light. We've kind of forgotten that. But what I want to say is we have to understand there's a law, a cosmic law, that there's a river of mercy. You will always be picked up at some point. You just have to get to the right degree of awareness and surrender. And then all your experiences are going to be redeemed and literally turned over. It's like a compost pile. It's going to become really good soil.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's interesting. We're just in this evolutionary path now, and we're getting really pushed, but we kind of have to be because it's sort of the fast end game. I mean, and we are all this is like all the karmic timelines are coming in now, right, to be resolved. So it's intense, but I guess we signed up for it, you know.
Certainly did. Yeah. I was just looking to see if people have any questions. Tara's put, Sia Almine said the angels are just as responsible for keeping duality going as the dark. Well, yeah, but I like you've said that there's the fallen angels and
Yeah.
the ones who didn't fall. So
Well, let me tell you what the angel, do you want to keep going or want me to tell you what the angelic?
oh yeah, no,
Yeah.
say with the angel
So,
one.
so if you're on a spirit level, a cosmic human, that's the way you were set up. And you like your experiences through your incarnations have been like down and dirty. You probably have some memories, right? But if you decided to, if you resonated out on an angelic level on the spirit, it's such a different orientation, which you can really come to feel in your incarnation. It actually can give you a lot of peace in your incarnation if you're angelic, because it's not a dual perspective, first of all. And it's also, whereas the masculine and feminine on the cosmic human are kind of searching for each other, that's other principle, and there's kind of a horizontal thing going, which is totally appropriate. The angel realizes, because it's sort of born to shepherd an idea, uh, and has a mission inherently, it realizes that it's almost like its relationship is with the divine mind as opposed to like a woman and a man. And it realizes that the divine mind is on a certain periodic basis, like opening in huge cosmic eggs of ideas that are going out with, with new angels on them. But even though you may have your assignment, all of a sudden the whole picture changes, right? So maybe it affects your assignment. So angels are kind of like, they like a inner quiet kind of waiting, like, because there's always the knowing that any minute there may be a new birth, and I'm going to watch it and see what happens. It's just a different feeling. But when angels weren't always able to come into the human body, but that did start, at some point. And it's interesting because you would think an angel would be all goody two shoes or whatever, or like happy because they're an angel. It's hard to be an angel in the human body. First of all, you look at humans like, what? This, because your innate perfection towards or draw to the divine is, why are you doing this with the divine? So there's a lot of judgment, huge lack of compassion, sometimes a deep intimidation, because it's pretty, an angel will kind of look at what a human is willing to do and go, oh my God. And it's a little scary. Like, wow, they're willing to do that. Like, oh, I'd be, you know. So angels have something to learn too, but in the human experience, and yet they're bringing up the human. I think there's a mastery at work when the Christ soul came in as Jesus. He actually carried the codes of the Holy Spirit, the angel, and the human. So that was like a new merge on that level, which was planting a frequency at one of the darkest times on Earth. And those frequencies, like the Christ soul literally planted the Big Dipper is the seven seeds of Christ consciousness. Very simple things, but they're not simple. But if you can do them, you're literally on a fifth dimensional platform. Acceptance. If you go into acceptance, you're not going to fall into duality. I mean, you may have to deal with a lot of junk, but you're just not going to get caught on either side. Forgiveness, love, the simplest things. But those frequencies were literally planted in our etheric field of our heart, like they're latent frequencies, but with coming into the photon belt now, it's like water. The light is coming onto them and they're blossoming because there's a place for them to be in this larger expression that is becoming. I mean, we've always been in this large galaxy, but it really hasn't been apprehendable or even approachable because we were in the galactic night, and that's part of the developmental cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of see it, and I felt the shift. I felt the shift over since I came in the 60s to now vibrationally. Because when I came in, I literally felt like, I mean, I associate with I came in with an angelic perspective, not a cosmic human. I have kind of been like a hovercraft. I've not
I
wanted to
understand.
touch the ground.
I'm with you.
It just felt too dense. And the other thing was a lot of the kind of the human behaviors, the human way of being it just didn't compute. I just didn't
Yeah.
understand like how could you even have that as a concept kind of thing. And so because it all felt so alien, I kind of drew up like, no, I don't want to touch that. It's just it's too dense. But the vibration has shifted. And I think because of all the work everybody's been doing, and also with the wider energetics, as we moved through and transitioned to this kind of point as that we're in now and beyond, it's lightened up massively, so
Hmm.
the collective vibration can hold those frequencies now. Those frequencies, they can be birthed or they can be seeded and grow, whereas before the kind of the soil just wasn't in a state that was possible um
Yes.
to
Yeah.
accommodate that at all. um
Right.
so I really resonate, and actually it really helped me um realize how I saw the world, and how I connect with people when I realized. But the interesting thing for me is when we did the stellar nations, I was really shocked at some of the codes that I have in me, that I totally wouldn't have associated myself with at all. But then when you get into the depths of the story, you kind of then go, oh yeah. I understand that aspect. And one for me is the unicorns. I would have never said I was a unicorn person. But the unicorn story that I very much resonate with really landed, and I kind of went, oh, okay. And again, it's that acceptance coming into that ability to accept that aspect of me. And as
Hmm.
we do one thing, we do all things. So, that the frequency of acceptance then grows and expands within you and out into the wider field that you are. That's how I see this work kind of evolving and expanding within me.
Hmm.
Again, the bears with the Christ consciousness, it took me a long time. It took me a long time to be able to kind of.
Oh my God, if we have big woundings, especially in the female serpent, we're like, oh man, I don't even want to hear the word Jesus, it's been so co-opted. But when you understand it on the galactic level and just you see the relational dynamics and it takes you out of your personal and you go, oh my God. Then you're like, oh wow, down here, I don't want to buy into that anymore. It's robbing me of this whole fifth dimensional frequency of that consciousness because of this stupid game that's been played, not only on Earth, but galactically. Uh,
Yeah, Absolutely. Um, I'm just looking, there's another well, it's something in the Q&A, but I'm not sure if it's a question. It says, thank you for bringing this wonderful information. As I traverse my life, I seem to switch aspects a lot of times, connecting with angelic, whale, dolphin, leonine, dragon, and avian. I feel into what element I'm connecting with in each moment because it shifts frequently.
Well, there's a really good cosmic human. You're blending, you're balancing and harmonizing. What a good job. No, seriously, because it's hard to do that. And especially when we're in the third dimension. But that's what our chart is. And it's kind of fun when you, well, the other thing is, I think when you start getting it in the mythic level and they have the characters and literally like you become friends with that part of yourself, well, it actually gives a language for it to drop in. Like I'll be in certain situations where I might have been a real bossy pain before in certain ways. It was part of my Pegasus thing. I want to see this manifest, this message. And I try to make it happen. I'm like, oh my God. I see the thing, the dynamic drop in. It's almost like a stake that goes in front of me. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do that. Like it's really changed my behaviors. But it's nice because even though when you approach the Stellar Nations Law, it's like 700 something pages. And over the years, because I've been involved since 2013, there's been a lot of interest, but then falling off because people think it's so intellectual and mental and I have to learn it all. And it's not, it's more like, yeah, okay, but it's really about letting it wake up from within. So, I mean, you can literally just read those stories and not get like, just let the patterning of the stories be and don't get too over involved. And that's one of the reasons I did the audio visual supplements that I did with the Quantum Planet World, because some people simply can't read, they may have a dyslexic, although, but there's really hidden treasures in one little sentence. Like as your being evolves, I mean, even now I can still look at it. I mean, not even, I don't sound like even now, this will be the way till I die. I look at it and that one sentence has a whole new meaning because I've changed. And actually, that's what Beatrix said. You could interpret your code to your last breath because you're not looking at something static. You're looking at these living forces. And it's this, well, I mean, when you get inside a code, like it's on an astrological radix, but you're right in the middle of this huge hologram of all these threads of information that carry themes. And that's the other reason I like the coherency of kind of knowing the story so you can see what your themes are and start to get grounded in it.
Mm.
So
Um,
yeah.
Layla put a question. I don't know whether she's able to come on and oh, I think she's just written it in the chat. So she is on. She said that she watched the video on the feline dragon interaction and felt the story of the video was her own story, as she strongly identified with it, of the feline storyline in this current life. And she was wondering if this is because we all carry the remembrance or whether she actually has a feline association. Personally, I think it's a bit of both, but what would you say to that?
I think that's a very good question. And I would say if you have a very deep feeling about it, that's part of your lineage. That's part of your galactic DNA. It explains part of your dynamics. So you can really start going into that and contemplating it. You can see where your stars are. Um, it's a little hard to have the very heavy feline lineage because that whole goddess energy got pushed out of the galaxy tilted yang, as we know. But literally, the stars that the felines are on didn't haven't had the same strength of radiation. You can have different meaning information coming through the light coming out of them because they haven't been as filled up with the feline energy. It's been off in the Andromeda galaxy. Well, that's totally changed. It's coming back. Now, because the feline is a body code, I mean, you may even have certain body problems. I did write a blog on it about this whole thing, and it brings up the body
Mm.
problems and or things that can happen. If you have neck problems, if you were part of that whole attack, because the literally when the attack happened, it's like the lion's neck was broken, literally, but symbolically. And also it was the first time that darkness defeated the light. But it was kind of a wake-up call as a vibration, meaning like no, you are supposed to plumb the dark to find the light. It's not about just standing over here like everything's groovy, so um yeah, I would say if she feels it strongly, she probably has some feline codes. But that's an interesting thing for this year because really the force of that is coming back very healed. And it may mean, if we can take it into our bodies, if there can be womb problems for the great felines. It's elucidated in the blog a little bit. If a great feline and a dragon fall in love, like heavy codes as humans, they may have infertility problems. It's weird, but because there's this cosmic memory, it's like literally they love each other, say, although they may have some typical dragon feline dynamics, which could be good and bad. But there's almost like a biological response to creating that child because of the ancestry of these wounds. So, I mean, I think which is actually, if you know that and can work on that level, you can heal that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I mean, everybody, it's funny. I can't remember who I had this conversation with, but it was a conversation I had recently where, through these energies being open within our field, we've manifested these traumas, this disease within our physical and energetic bodies. But we are powerful creative beings, so we can also manifest the healing of that. Nothing is unhealable, and in a way, you've shown that with your story, kind of, completely healing from cancer. It's like if we can come into harmony with our galactic histories, with our wound patterns, if we can create that balance and come back into alignment, then all of these kind of like red flags, basically, that are showing
mhm,
up in our physical body, they don't need to be there anymore because we've healed what it was that they were trying to indicate and show us. It's just allowing ourselves to kind of go in on that level and really open our awareness to stepping away from labels and this and that and the other about
exactly.
what the condition is, and step into, okay, the root cause of that could
Right.
be somewhere completely different, and allowing ourselves to kind of really dive into the multidimensionality that we truly are, to kind of heal something that is very, very much showing itself in the physical. Um, I'm just aware of the time. We
Yes.
have an hour already. Is there anything that you want to share around the importance of this year, it being the year of the dragons and the great felines, and what we can be doing on an individual level to kind of make the most of it, really, and kind of to heal and come into harmony as much as possible, so that we can kind of birth into this new cycle of mastery.
Okay, well, these energies are coming in and literally imprinting on the collective cosmic field in us. So, yes, it's important to anchor them. And I think one of the biggest ways we can do it is realize that where we're wounded, we're vulnerable towards the shadow. Like our wounds will be where we can't see clearly, we get triggered, we make choices, we stay really enmeshed in duality. We don't hear the new patterns. So I think, well, first of all, just knowing the nature of these wounds or any other wounds helps because we all have wounded parts. And so that's why I like the Stellar Nations. It sort of makes the wounds, apprehendable, but in a story form. But so it's important to feel your wounding and really ask for, I'm going to say ask for mercy, but it sounds so like religious that we get turned off for, but it's like there's an aspect of forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others. There's an aspect of surrender beyond what we can even imagine surrender is. And it's a kind of a humbleness. I mean, it's like literally saying, I'm going to stop playing any feeling I have to put any mask stuff in front of this huge creator force, which is where the fear comes in, right? Which you're talking about to take your sovereignty. And I think the fear is well founded and almost innately biological because there have been many times, I think, throughout creation, we've literally been blown up to a million soul fragments And we've spent a lot of time recollecting them. And it's like once you're about to just be whole, you remember, but I could blow up again. And I'm not going to keep that. I'm going to take that one piece out so I'm not whole, so I won't blow up. But yeah, it's an act of deep surrender. I just did a talk with David Farrell yesterday about this time, specifically April 20th, but Mars is going through, and we could think of Mars as kind of the ego part of us, is going through the Phoenix star, or the mystery of letting go. You have to jump off or there's no renewal. But you know what? You're always caught. And it's interesting because with that Phoenix star saying you have to let go, there's also the Zeta Reticuli, which is one of the fallen arthropod stars of the grays and all that. So it's like, what do you have here with these two stars telling you you have to jump off into if you want to stay in the organic matrix and trust that there's renewal? But then you have the mirror of, oh, the parts of ourselves that didn't take initiation, were afraid to jump off. They're gray, literally. They're not fully alive and they need to pull from other energy sources. So anyway, that was a long answer to say some of the simplest things of forgiveness, surrender, trusting the principles of creation or the God force. Like the reason I healed from healing is cancer is I got that because I literally felt like we live in an unfriendly universe, and I was always hovering on my over my body too. But I felt like the God force was a cat that just played with you.
Mm,
So my true healing throughout that year, over a year of this, a lot of stuff was realizing that no, the universe is there's this huge force of love that we live in, and everything else is just the choices that people and beings make to not follow love. And once I healed that, it's like my cell, once I saw that, my cells, I guess, didn't want to do it anymore because my doctors are always shocked, like that always comes back in 3 years, that kind of cell type. But I think it was the deeper healing.
mm. No, absolutely, absolutely. And again, it's so synchronous with many conversations that I've had with clients recently. And again, the talk that I was, guided to give on Monday with a big thing of mastery is like letting go of that which isn't resonant with you. And I had a major aspect of that in my journey after I was paralyzed. I was
You were?
paralyzed. Yeah, in 96, I was paralyzed, thankfully, very
Oh, I
briefly. But
think I remember. Yeah.
yeah, but it was such a powerful moment to kind of go, huh, okay, I can't carry on like this because if I do this, this is the route that I'm going down. Something massive has to change. And I literally went through every interaction of my life up until that point, every relationship, all the choices that I've made. And I took responsibility for them all, whether I said something, didn't say something, did something, didn't do something, but without judgment. And I think that's a key thing on this journey. It's like allowing yourself to step into the fifth, sixth, seventh dimensional aspects of yourself where there isn't judgment, because like I say, we've all been all of these
Mhm.
parts, we all have them in us. And just allowing ourselves to go there and meet ourselves and say, it's okay. Yeah, I said that.
Exactly.
Yeah, I did that.
That's a
It's,
forgiveness thing too.
yeah.
And but it also you can do that easier when you realize that you're inside this grand plan and you're actually playing the game you were supposed to play, and you're not some horrible being.
Exactly.
Uh,
Exactly.
Someone asked about Egypt and cats. Do you want me to answer one question there?
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah. It's great that people are asking questions, but yeah, answer that last question before we close the call.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because you can kind of associate the star Sirius in a way with the whole Egyptian uh, out formation on Earth. And what rises in the dawn before Sirius rises in the sky is a little constellation called the Canis Minor, the little dog. But see, when Bay and Aniko went into the Akashic records, they like a lot of times they were shown, well, that's our projection, but there's another truth. There's really a different constellation and underneath that's telling the true story. And it's really a little cat. So it's like the cat rises before in the dawn before Egypt, or let's say Egypt came in as a another potential to heal the yang that didn't really work. So it's interesting that the little cat, the feminine, the warrior, came up first to watch over it. And Egypt looked towards particularly the goddess Basset, the great kind of holding mother god. And the two stars on the little cat, Canis feline, not Canis, whatever it is, no, it's feline minor, they renamed it, are Procyon and Gomecia. And Procyon is the heart of the cat being, and the Gomecia is the third eye. But Procyon is interesting. It has a, a fifth dimensional expression as the heart of the cat being. It has a fourth dimensional expression with the unicorns running through it. And for the unicorns running through it, it's this really hard inner labyrinth. It's like you get plopped down in a steamy, dark, hot place all by yourself. It's kind of foggy. You just can hardly stay awake, and you're walking around, and the question is, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? But what it really represents is when the feminine got pushed out, your unicorns being about creation, it's like an aspect of creation was thwarted. So it's like it was crushed. And that's why Procyon is in the fourth dimension. You're going, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? Because you're not really aligned with the whole idea, the true alignment. But the Procyon cat being is. And even while the great feline was pushed out and all, I think it's kind of, I don't know, poignant that that constellation would always come up before dawn to watch Sirius, to watch this kind of young expression. Well, it was supposed to try to help solve the young imbalance. Atlantis was a first try at that. It didn't work. Egypt was a try at it. We're trying to do it now, which is why it's so important to or helpful to be aware of the bigger dynamics and really see how you can integrate it. Like it's hard to forgive and it's hard to do those things, but when you start seeing the bigger dynamics and it becomes it's very personal, but it becomes depersonalized in the framework, and then it gives you like courage to make different choices because you just say, "Oh, wait a minute, it's bigger than this." It takes you out of you, and that's exactly what the stars do. The dolphins are singing all the time. Remember, you're never alone. You haven't been forgotten. You're not just your everyday human consciousness. But we are starting to hear those messages. So that's what's happening. You're right. The whole vibratory quality is so different. I was born in the 50s. Oh my God. That was like, and actually I have Procyon on my Venus and my MC, and I was like walking through the crushed part of it. That's why I had to get cancer to see the the other part of it.
Yeah, no, totally. And again, we in this physical presence, we do live currently in a dualized, polarized world. And so our experiences are going to be that. And if anybody looks at their life, we quite often go through what we don't want to find what we do want. And that's just the journey of this physicality. So of
Mhm.
course, our journeys through these higher dimensional elements of us coming into our realization and awareness are also going to track through that process quite often, because it's we are within the physical form, and the physical form is in this lower dimensional presence, so we're going to experience it in that way. I just want to close on where people can, if they're interested in this work, get more information, get access to having their Antares code, and also the fact that you do readings for the Antares code. And so, where can they connect in with you, connect in with your work as well?
Okay, well, right now, I still refer people to the stellarnations.com. You can order books and the code there. When you order your code, a long letter comes out and it talks about the different blogs or videos I've done on it. It gives my information. So that's how you can get a hold of me. I was always feeling like an ambassador and guide and busy editing, and I never felt I've never had my own website, but there's been such a surge of interest and really people wanting to come together, um, with projects, discussion groups, in a new way. So I'm actually having one designed now. So we have another like substation or a hub for English speaking people. So that's not around, that's not here yet, but my unicorn is trying to, has a strong morphogenic field around it. So, but so right now I would just say to go to the website and look, that has the normal tabs, books, if you want to order codes. You can order your code with correction of time. A lot of people get confused around this. If you know when you were born, just put it down. If you don't know, Beatrix can go into the Akashic Chronicles and see. It's
Mm.
kind of funny to look at codes that she they literally have the seconds on them. But what happens is when she opens the records, with that, she does ask for a form to be filled out because it kind of you have certain kind of energetic profile based on when you come through. So if she has the form, it helps her sort of start to focus in. And also if there's, when you focus in, it's hazy, maybe there's a few possibilities, but you can see from the answer to questions, maybe what more precisely. So,
No, absolutely. And with the fixed stars, it's not like the planets. There is a shift, and it really does make a difference. I mean, I've had my chart done with the time uh, gone that route through Bay and going in and checking the exact time because I never knew. And both of my parents are dead, so I can't ask anybody.
mm,
But I channeled a time, and that was the time that I gave them, and I wasn't far off,
well, good for
but
you.
it was just slightly different. But that slight difference actually made a difference in the layout and where the fixed stars were, and because the degree is much smaller than the planetary degree, in terms of whether they are a match or aren't a match, in the
Right. And it's very tricky because you were born at a certain point and the stars were in orb, like in the back of the book, there's all these charts. Some stars have 4 degrees orb, some 2.5, but it's really related to where that was when you were born, not like today. So it's a pretty complex program, actually. It was really hard to program that. And it's been tricky because, and then to get all those stars on there. So
yeah.
yes, someone just asked, is there a website? They may not have heard. Right now, just go to stellarnations.com.
Yeah, what I will
And
do is underneath the edited video that goes out, I'll write the Stellar Nations website,
yeah.
so
And
that you
ultimately, every time someone, well, if people order from the US, I send books out and I send a letter and I put them on the mailing list. And then, but we need to move beyond a mailing list, so, but then I'll be able to alert people and they'll say it in the Stellar Nations. There's a Facebook group and such like that. So, the word will get out that because I really want to create a little hub because there is so much more. What I'm really impressed by, I'm meeting people who literally have read the books in 3 weeks, which is basically kind of what I did. I mean, it's not that I haven't gone back, but it's like, I want to see this whole thing at once. Gone back a million times. And then they have a code reading, and the degree of apprehension and getting it is, well, since I've been going around with it since 2013 in various ways and leading different groups, it's it's so weird. It's so beautifully different. I love it because I used to feel like how freeway systems are? You have the big green signs, get on here, here's an exit. I used to feel like I was literally walking on the freeways because there were no cars, so I could just walk around. And I'm like, oh my God, I wish you guys knew this was here. I think that's why I feel like, I'm so driven to be a spokesperson for it. So,
no, but I mean, again, it's an aspect of your mission, in terms of bringing it forth because it's an evolution of the astrological modalities that have landed and are very well embedded. But it again, it's just we're in that place now. We're in that place that we get to go deeper, we get to go higher in the understanding of who we are and what we've brought into this incarnation to resolve, not just for ourselves, but for the whole of the collective consciousness, so that we can all come into our highest presentation and experience. Because for me, you know, we didn't just come here to do work. We came here to enjoy life. We came here to fully express ourselves and our truth. And we have to find our truth to be able to express it. And so that's the kind of the beautiful blending of this journey. I don't see any of the processes that I've undertaken in my life, good, bad, ugly, or any of the processes that I'm witnessing and undertaking in this moment as work anymore, because it's like, well, yeah, for me to fully express myself, I get to fully know myself and to, come into unity with the all that I am. Um, my shadow journeys as well as my light. That's what
Right,
makes me me.
right. And we live on an absolutely beautiful planet, even though it's been really maligned. And if we do come into that consciousness, which, okay, we'll call it the Christed consciousness, but our wounds may not like that. But but then we're like literally keyed into that level of beauty. And that's what we're meant. It's just what you said. We're meant to really be here to enjoy and see that. But we are charged now with seeing that, calling it in. It does exist, but we have to be it to call it in. And we have to be it sometimes in the middle of some of the darkest polarity. But remember, our training is going deep into the dark to find the light. So now we get to really manifest that.
Yeah, absolutely. And in a way, it kind of helps us go through the really dark shadow, because it's part of what we came here to do. And we wouldn't have come here if we couldn't do it and we weren't
Right,
ready to do it. And
right,
I
right.
think that's something that we can all hold on to. I wouldn't have chosen this path. I wouldn't have chosen to be here for this amazingly profound time in cosmic history if I didn't have all the tools within me to be able to actually come into mastery within it. It's just allowing myself to acknowledge that and to connect in with it, and not, kind of hold on tightly to the little bits that I have in fear of it all
I
exploding and
know.
losing
Right.
everything again.
Well, so on that, Nate, I think we could finish maybe on this. When I talked about the whole Phoenix star of needing the mystery of letting go, I thought a lot about that. I mean, what am I letting go of? It is scary. Like, what, you want me to let go of my house, my family? Wait, that doesn't make sense. And then I just realized it's just about letting go of control, like you said, like the control meaning thinking that we have to hold the bits together. Yes, we have to be organized and all that, but there's a sort of this fine level of, well, it comes down to becoming more fifth dimensional consciousness. We're a form. So that's what makes us think about control, because it's form state makes you, I don't know, want to hold. But we're asked to be letting the fluidness come through. It's actually the truth of what our sun was being trained to do. Our sun is an eighth Pleiadian star, and his father Atlas was he was being trained. He thought when he was kind of a adolescent stage at another Aquarian age, and he looked at his father thinking, "Oh my God, I have to stand there and just hold things. How boring." So he roiled and roiled, broke orbit, eventually fell out of orbit. Our solar system is our sun's chance to redeem and go back to his original fate. He was given the right to make the different planets. I've talked about this as it's a big story. It's in the books, and there is a new book coming out very soon, like within a month probably, that has another 800-page book with, oh God, so much good cosmic history that it will really help us understand. But anyway, the point of our sun is, and even for us, we project onto Saturn, that it's this kind of calcified father, although it's form and it's good. But I really think as we move evolutionarily, we have to realize what Atlas was trying to tell the sun and what, Saturn really means. just went into Pisces, I think. Wait, went into a fluid. Yeah, it's in Pisces. Fluid, which like that's not Saturn, but it is the truth of the underlying impetus. What Atlas said, these Pleiadian stars guide us because literally our sun, we're like a subset of we're relatives. Because our son is their little brother. And he wants to be back with his family in some way, but he's got us as a family now in this solar system. And he's counting on Earth. So there can be this, he can get a little closer. I don't know how it's going to look. Anyway, I could go on forever, so maybe I should stop there. But I guess what I wanted to say with Atlas is, or Saturn, it's like it's this whole concept of how to be holding something and being in form and yet being totally fluid with it. And it is really like having your light body come into your physical body. And that's why it's helpful to know the contours of your light body. Otherwise, what are you fitting in?
No, absolutely. And that ties in. I think it was with Peter's talk as well. It's like, we know we're heading towards unity consciousness, but the paradoxical thing is we have to realize fully individualization
Yeah,
to come into unity consciousness. It's like we have to know where we start and stop
yeah,
before and take full responsibility of that to then be able to come into unity consciousness. So
yeah,
yeah, it's that beautiful dance between all of the different wisdoms coming together as one, just, coming at it from a different perspective. Because again, we're we're all individuated, so we take information in a very individual way, and that's the beauty
exactly.
of these different modalities, because regardless of how you take information in, there is something for you to guide you and help you and assist you on that journey.
And see, that's the great feline realization. That's exactly why they rebelled. And it was actually that impetus was to come to this point. And it's like it was a sacrifice, if you want to look at it, of the goddess going, oh my God, my child wants to learn this. I have to let them be that hurt. I have to let them go so they can go through this development cycle. I mean, and that's the truth of the mother. The mother holds everything. And you're going to see that when you read the book in Atlas and Pleione and the love of those two stars. They're like the consummate. They're stars where pieces of our soul don't live because they're just points of consciousness. They radiate out this this whole modeling of energetics of how to be, the love for each other, the parenting of all these different things, the acceptance. Anyway, I'll stop. We won't be here for 3 hours, but thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing the Stellar Nations wisdom. Again, I will put all the details if people are interested in looking into their own Antares code, of how to go about that, how to get access to the books. And also, once you have your Antares code, very much in the role that Peter plays as the ambassador of the Gene Keys, Leslie has all this information in her head and is able to kind of look at your code and really get a feel for you. And so again, go through and talk through with you what your journey is in this lifetime and what you've come into kind of really master and bring into harmony within yourselves. And I certainly found it very eye-opening for me,
Mhm.
and I've been on this journey pretty much my whole life.
Okay,
So yeah, so much juice in there, to really kind of
great,
get our teeth into it and kind of go deeper and deeper within ourselves, but said in a very beautiful narrative way. So
great.
thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you, Leslie, for joining us. The first time on this summit. It's been an absolute joy to have you. And the sun is shining, rays
I
pouring
know, my
out of
skylight is,
it.
the son likes what I'm saying about it or something. Yeah, I want to go home. Tell them, tell them. So,
You're you're
yeah.
illuminated.
Right. But on that note, like that's the other reason I want the website, the hub. We all can be ambassadors. Other people can learn to do this, so it's just a matter about taking in the codes and then I think we can come into sharing on a new level. So it'll be fun.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, definitely. Um, leading on from today's call, we have the amazing David Farrell joining us again. And he will be also sharing part of his recent journey of an accident, not an accident. I feel he took one for the team collectively in what happened with him. But he will be sharing that, tying it in with the Stellar Nations wisdom, but also with the Mayan wisdom that his partner, Bella Alvaren, will be discussing on the slightly delayed call next week. So I hope that you can all join me again tomorrow. I love sharing space with everybody. I know I'm holding space for the whole summit, and therefore I am connecting in with everybody who connects in with the summit. But it's lovely to kind of feel you on a more tangible level when you join us in the live calls and interact with the chat and the comments and everything. So blessings to you all. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And I hope to see as many of you as possible on the call tomorrow. Take care, everybody. I hope you've enjoyed this session,
Thank
this
you.
information
Yes.
with them, sharing, and I shall see you all again tomorrow. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you, Louise.
Bye. Right, stop the recording. Leslie, when I shut the webinar down, it shuts it down for
No,
everybody.
I find, yeah, so I'll leave. Thank you so much. And you take care. It was good to be with you. Bye-bye.
Bye.